All right, I believe we're live. We are live. It says you are live right there. Very, very cool. Thank you. This is Lulu. Thank you, Lulu, for being here for my second uh, Mondays Live at 11 event.
I'm
Um,
so excited to be here. Thank you, Gabe.
well, this is fun, isn't it? So let me talk about Lulu for a little bit before I read her official bio. When did we meet? We met like a
Oh,
year ago, a year and a half
two?
ago,
No, I've had the card now for 2 years.
2 years. Okay,
Yeah, so we
so it
met just a
was
little bit before that.
so it was very cool. It was so in 2 years ago, it was pretty early on in my business, right? So
Yep.
and you said to me, "Do you have any cards that have background video?" And I go, "No, but that's really a hell of an idea. I should." And then we created yours out of that, and so that was yours was the first that had that idea, and now, and it's really fun to watch as things have grown and have developed in the past. So yeah, you've always kind of been pushing me for the newest things, and now we're doing all kinds of crazy things on our cards.
And
But
I'm so excited that you've grown. It's amazing.
mhm. Well, I appreciate that. So speaking of which, please visit our sponsor, Digital Accelerant, at digitalaccelerant.com. You can text the word Gabe to the number 21,000 to get my digital business card. We do customized individual digital business cards for our clients. So enough of that. So let's get right into it. So Lulu is one of my clients. She is a certified travel guru, providing curated and socially responsible travel experiences around the globe. She's certified by Tourism Cares as a goods travel advisor, partnering with small business owners to keep tourism dollars in local communities. Her company, Book Here, Give Here, focuses on keeping travel sustainable and equitable in all destinations. So, Lulu is a certified specialist in wellness, leisure, destination weddings and honeymoons, and family travel, and has extensive experience with corporate groups. So, very good. So, welcome.
Thank you.
And
I'm
to get Lulu's card, you text the word travel to 21,000 to
That's
get all
right.
your information.
Travel
So,
at 21,000. Every single social media channel that I got is on there.
there you go. There you go. Um, so how long? When did this start? This whole travel bug with you, I guess, is a
Yeah.
question to
So
have.
I've been and I've been traveling since I was 6 months old. My
Wow.
first trip was to Bermuda. So I've had my passport pretty much since I was a baby. And I don't know how not to do it. I come from a family where travel is considered a necessity, not a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is because travel really educates us
Right.
in a different light. And that's kind of how my bug started. I When I graduated high school, I left and moved to Switzerland for 2 years.
Wow.
And I went to college there and I studied hospitality management. And when
Mm-hmm.
classes were over on Thursday night or Friday mid afternoon, I was gone till Monday morning class. And what was I doing?
Traveling.
Gavelanting throughout Europe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that whole take a year off and, live in Europe and all that kind of stuff, well, I got to do it along with my education.
So
And
what made you go to Switzerland specifically to college?
yeah, so I have a love and a passion for travel and hospitality. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, the Swiss are the top la creme de la creme of hospitality.
Okay.
In terms of doing every once you learn the Swiss way, you've pretty much mastered every single way in every single department of a hotel, of managing hospitality in all different levels. And I had a scholarship which basically allowed me to, or I should say allowed my parents to give me money so that I could
Right.
gallivant. and I so my scholarship paid for my classes. So that's kind of how all of that was chosen. Um, but it was it was a great adventure, and
Mm-hmm.
it has formed me to who I am today.
So what were the people like? I mean, when I went to college, I went from Florida. in high school up to University of Guelph in Ontario, and of course, and plus I was 2 years younger than everybody else. So what was the cultural? Did you come from Texas? Is that where you came
No,
from?
so I'm originally born and raised New York City.
Okay.
New York City Latina girl with at 17 years old with a chip on her shoulder that thinks the world revolves around her.
Right.
I got schooled,
Mm-hmm.
and because my school was an international school, I had people from all different cultures, and I really got an eye opening where it really taught me how to be not only tolerant of others, but also open to ideas of the differences in people, which
Right.
just enhanced my passion for travel more.
Mm-hmm.
So, my current business actually has four main pillars.
Uh-huh.
And I wrap travel under wellness, which is mind, body, spirit. How
Right.
will this trip transform you and make you a better world citizen? I
Mm-hmm.
focus on gastronomy, which is what's the better way to local cultural immersion by breaking bread with somebody that,
Right. Mm-hmm.
especially if you think they're different, you'll realize they're not so different after all.
Mm-hmm.
Off the beaten path, because no matter where in the world you are, there's always something that you can find that is completely off that beaten path that only locals know about. And
Mm-hmm.
by making friends, you're going to find that, right? You're going to
Right.
follow your new friends. And the last is travel as a living classroom, because it not only teaches you when you meet other people, but also when you walk in history. You stop learning from textbooks or from other people's opinions, especially today in our internet age,
Right.
and you actually pick up everything from the locals, from what you're looking through, a museum, or forget even the museums. When you're in Budapest, as an example, and seeing the golden shoes during the Holocaust, right? You can actually experience it and walk in history
Right.
and have that total feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that will give you your own historical opinions and going through and going through all the facts and everything else, and that way you can figure out how to make things happen.
You know
So
that it's interesting you say that because I had a kind of the experience I can relate with that is when um my wife had a medical thing done in Dallas. So we traveled to Dallas and we got a couple of days off and we figured, well, let's do the touristy thing. So let's go to Dealey Plaza.
yep.
And so we did. And then when we went up in the book depository and we went up to the level in the book depository where apparently all the craziness happened. And
Yes.
I looked out the window and I saw the angle of the car was coming straight at the window, but Kennedy wasn't shot during that angle. He had turned the corner, and there's this huge tree right in the way. And I'm thinking,
Hmm.
this doesn't make any sense. But just what you said about standing back in history. I mean, and because that tree was there in the '60s as well. It's standing back in history and kind of wondering what and forming an opinion. That really kind of it actually told me that that's not logical that he would wait until that time. But anyway, I don't want to get a big conspiracy
No,
theory thing.
but it's a good analysis, right?
Right.
And an analogy of what travel does for you, because
Exactly.
it basically says, okay, somebody else wrote this,
Right.
but now I'm walking in it,
Right.
and now I'm experiencing what transpired,
Right.
and I'm doing my own version of fact checking.
Right. And forming your own opinion based on what you see as opposed to what other people tell you. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Don't so and this is how you become a leader, not a follower.
Hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. So I had something else about your other stuff. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention was you talked about tolerance in people. Excuse me. And that's what I noticed about people in Canada.
Yes.
I was born in Canada, and I lived in Arnprior for a while, and then we moved down to Florida for high school, and back to Canada for college. And what I noticed, I mean, I had a buddy who had another guy that it was really kind of unsavory. It was really kind of suspect, as my daughter would say. And he would do things that were kind of annoying and just not really, it just kind of not normal. So I asked him, I said, "What's going on with that guy?" And he said, "Hey, he's been my buddy since I was a kid, and that's just, and what it really taught me was that, hey, everybody has faults and misgivings and all this other stuff. But if you just say, well, he's got that wrong with him, so I'm gonna, the heck with him or her, that's just stupid. And it really opened my eyes, and I said, yeah, you know what? It makes a lot more sense to just being more open and accepting of people, and that's the way I noticed that it was different though, because I hadn't experienced that much here in the U.S.
Yep. No. And, as being a neurodivergent myself, I've always been the quirky one.
Hmm.
So when I got schooled by others, it was also very eye-opening for me, because it was, especially, in the 90s, at that point, I was, people were starting to kind of go point things out that were going, hey, you're different, but
Hmm.
let's talk about why you're different.
Right.
Whereas, beforehand, I was just, I'm different and I'm going to kind of be quirky, but it's my chip, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
um, and travel really allowed me to do that. So, like, as I went to every different country, I learned, and this was before the euro, so I learned so much about math, about
Hmm.
conversion, right? Because I had to convert into every single country's currency. I
Hmm.
learned about the travel, the language, the foods, and I learned that the world didn't revolve around me.
Right.
And that was at 17, between 17 and 19. That's a big eye opener.
Hmm. Absolutely. And
So,
so,
but
so
it's
when you
still
say,
amazing.
when you have you been to every country? I mean, how
No, I
many
haven't. I have lots
how
of
many
countries still to visit. I'm in the 40s,
I mean, how many countries are there? Because I keep hearing.
197.
Okay, all right. So, because I keep hearing different numbers, but so that's a lot. So you've been to 40?
I've been to about
That's
40 countries. Yeah.
that's still
So I'm
better
in the
than
40
my
range.
better than my 2.
and
Canada and the U.S. I haven't even been to Mexico, so.
and here's the thing. I revisit a lot of them.
Mhm.
And I explore new ones continuously. So I've got colleagues that are in the 80s, and I'm going, one day I'll catch up to you.
Right.
Thanks to the pandemic, I had to slow down quite a bit,
Right.
but it didn't stop me from traveling.
Right. So are they, where are these? Are they mostly in Europe? Or are they all over the place? Have you
They're
been to
all over the
Russia?
place. They're in Europe, they're in Asia, they're in the Caribbean, they're
Mhm.
in Central and South America.
Mhm.
So and there's lots of islands in this world.
Right.
So it's and some and these islands are on their own,
Mhm.
and they're independent countries, and so and that in itself is quite a large feat.
Right.
So yeah, so it's really it's fun experiencing a lot of that. But one of the things that I really love to do, since I opened up my travel agency 6 years ago, was really do cultural immersion. So we talked about the differences in people and everything else. And so cultural immersion is not just, hi, let me take a cruise somewhere and let me go to a port and say, oh, I've been to that
Right.
country.
Right. Right. Exactly.
um, I usually do my best about trying to be anywhere from 2.5 to 3 weeks in a particular country and immerse myself.
Mhm.
Um, so one of the trips that I did recently was actually I was in Croatia in June, and that allowed me to really to go in and out of different places. I did a cruise to a lot of the different islands, where I got to experience some of those moving pieces and visit. My God, Croatia has over 1,000 islands,
Wow.
and I only did a handful.
Mhm.
But then after that, I really got a true local immersion with a colleague, and we drove from Dubrovnik all the way north into Zagreb. and stopping in different towns off the beaten path, all of that kind of stuff. And that's the stuff that you really need to do. When you go to Costa Rica, people go, oh, I want to do an all-inclusive. You don't want to do an all-inclusive in Costa Rica.
Right. Right.
That defeats the purpose. Costa
Yeah.
Rica is not one of those countries that you do that. And plus you'll miss all of the amazing wildlife.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. When in 1983, I took a 3 month. I call it a walkabout. My sister said I'm not allowed to use that word because it's not really a walkabout. But I took my car and drove from Maryland all the way through the South, and then up through the coast of California, and then I ended up in Seattle. And it was funny because I had been preparing for this for a year, and I had this thing of me walking into one of those saloons with a swinging door and walking in there and having everybody turn and look and stop, and that actually happened in Alaska when I was there. It was pretty funny but I wasn't scared of it when it did. But and I remember the ships in where was it? I think it was in Juneau. I think it was Juneau where there was the Red Dog Saloon or something like that. The cruise ship would get you off, take you to the Red Dog Saloon. You have an hour, you get back on the ship, and I spent 2 weeks up there, what I did was I slept on the ferry actually, and
Wow.
and without a cabin, and that was weird because when you're roughing it like that, the first thing people when they get on the ferry, they're rushing for places to grab is where they're going
Yes.
to sleep, and
Yes.
so people going in the bar and grabbing like a booth. This is where I'm going to sleep, and so they're putting their stuff there. Well, I didn't really want to sleep in the bar, so I went up and I actually pitched my tent up in the solarium up where so it was open ended, but it was and it was actually nerdy to pitch your tent. After a while, people didn't even bother pitching their tent; they just put their stuff down there. But we didn't know from. But anyway, so
Live
we
and
did,
learn.
yeah, and so we got off. Got off in Ketchikan, and the ferry we use it. You use it like a bus when you're done, you get back on it and you go to the next spot and man, I had such a good time. The people that I met were very, very real. I mean,
Yes.
especially in Alaska and New Orleans, I found people to be the most genuine. But the one thing that was weird about Alaska was that they had to have buddies,
Yeah.
suicide buddies, because it's in Juneau you can only get there by boat and by air. You can't get there by driving, which means you
No.
can't get out by driving. And I went and I was there for I think I was in Juneau for either a week or 2 weeks, and it is small. And I was starting to go stir crazy in a night, and it was beautiful. I mean, because the sun was out till 9:30 at night. But
Yeah.
imagine if in the wintertime when it's dark all the time and you're there for months and months. So, but the people were so genuine. But again, the folks that got off the boat and went to the Red Dog had, you know, it's like they could have done that anywhere, right? And
Yep.
it would have been the same experience. So
Yep.
yeah, I
No,
really
it
agree with that.
it absolutely is. And you can and if you're a fishing fanatic, the salmon that you can get up there,
Hmm.
I mean, there's just so much that you can really enjoy.
Right.
So, and there's so much wildlife. People don't realize that we in the US actually have quite a bit of safari.
Hmm.
Um, and we kind of just take it for granted.
Right.
Because we think safari and we automatically think Africa.
Right.
And a lot of the African countries. But the reality is that we've got it in our own backyard.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so but there's just so much to enjoy and so much, experiences overall to be had. And I
Right.
think that, it's I think everybody needs to go and truly have that mind-blowing experience and then plan it continuously.
Yeah, absolutely. And sadly, after after I did that, I thought, well, I'm gonna, because I'd never even camped before, and I took this 3 months off, and
Mhm.
I was camping, and I was going to all these places, going by myself, and I really thought that that was going to start something, but it never really did, which is kind of sad. I still can remember almost every single day from that summer, because it was so powerful. I remember saying that, okay, part of what's on my list is the Grand Canyon, so I'll go up, drive there, look out, and say, okay, that's it, and then I go to the next place. No, no. When I hit that, I mean, you can look at every picture of the Grand Canyon. You can. I don't care how many pictures you look at that. Look at it of it. It is
Mm.
the most powerful thing I've ever seen. I stayed there for 3 days. I took a helicopter through it, and I mean, it's phenomenal. There's so much. There is just so much, not only beauty and as you say, the wildlife. I've seen the humpback whales and the eagles in Alaska. Just like flying all over the place, and so yeah, it really does open your mind. And I could only imagine if I did, some of the stuff that you do. How I mean,
You
it's
know,
kind of
I was schooled when I went to South Dakota,
hmm
and on I was in a national park, and what did I have right outside my cabin? Bison.
hmm
And I mean, they're literally just walking along like nothing. And I'm sitting in my cabin going, I can't open my door. I got this big old bison.
right,
I mean, obviously, they tell you in advance, don't pet them, don't do anything with
right, of
them, and,
course.
all that kind of stuff. But all I wanted to do was go pet them.
hmm hmm
But I knew
Yeah.
better. But I took amazing pictures, and I was able to, showcase and just kind of put it all out there.
hmm
So, um, you road tripped. You can do a lot of this via road tripping, or you can take your passport and really just go around the world.
Right.
And so and there's so many nooks and crannies of places to go, and um I mean, like, Belize is another amazing adventure.
hmm
So, you can do that. People don't realize that you can have a overwater bungalow experience in Panama,
hmm
because they're always looking to go to the South Pacific, or somewhere in the Mexican all-inclusive arena,
hmm
for some of this stuff. But the reality is that you can find a lot of this stuff in different places. People can have Indiana Jones adventures in Guatemala.
hmm
I mean, you can have any type of adventure that you desire. Um,
Interesting. Yeah. So the kind of stuff that I get really interested in, when my daughter was 9, she started a charity called Kids Are Heroes, and we showcase kids we normalize philanthropy for children basically by
yep,
showcasing those who are making a difference. So this took off it started as a website, and it ended up getting other people from that started locally, and then it was the next state over, and then it was all the way to California, and then the other countries. And one I just remember one day that I got a nomination for a boy in the Sudan on for my website, because you had to be nominated to be on it,
great.
and I basically let everybody on as long as it was as long as it was real. And and the question was, how did you find out about us? And the answer was from my teacher. And I thought, how cool is that? I didn't even know where this. I had to look where it was. But what that kind of really opened it up for me was we had events, and these kids started coming to them from all over the world.
Yep,
And this one girl, Diana, was 16 years old. She's from Nairobi, and she came with her escort or chaperone, whatever. I think it was her aunt or something like that. And they were going to stay with us because it was just easier that way. It was only a few days, and and so they were saying. So she lived in Nairobi, and people were asking her, "Where are you going?" Well, I'm going to the United States. Whereabouts? A place called Frederick, Maryland. Well, how'd you meet these people? On the internet. And then people are asking us, "Well, you're having people over from Africa? Yeah, where'd you meet them?" Well, on the internet.
Yeah.
And it was funny
The inter-
because but her uncle lived in Georgia, and so we were kind of. I said to him, I said, "Do they have any eating
Dietary
issues or right,
restrictions or anything
right,
like
yeah,
that.
any of that stuff, or are they afraid of animals? Because we had two big Bernese Mountain Dogs, and I don't know, they love anything, and they love dogs. They're big, no worries. So they come, and the first thing that we learned was that well, Diana was a vegetarian. That was the first thing we learned. But the first thing that she wanted to do was go to McDonald's and get a large fry. I mean, it was right out of the from the airport. That was the first thing we had to do. Find a McDonald's and get a large fry. So, and so I just kind of realized that she's no different. These kids are no different. I mean,
No.
there's differences, but they're the same. People have a lot of things in common, and it turns out that they were both scared to death of animals, and but by the time they were over, they were fighting over who was going to walk which dog, and so it was really amazing. And then the boy from Abu Dhabi, and his parents were just so. I'm still in touch with them, and this was years ago, and they're just so gracious and so kind, and it's just amazing when
30 years later, after graduating from college, I still have those friendships.
mm-hmm, yeah.
And so I get it. I mean, and these are friends for life. I know my parents have met people on their personal trips and even on trips where we were taken as kids, and those are friends for life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So
I get
so
it.
so the state of let's talk about the state of travel as it is today. So
Yes.
what's open and what's not open, and where are you recommending people go these days, etc.
Yeah. So each country has different rules. Our own country has rules on how, what tests you need if you leave the country and you need to come back. Even
Mm-hmm.
some of our own territories and states have requirements for entering.
Mm-hmm.
So, like if you're going to Hawaii or Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, you have to test to go in, but you don't need to test to come out because you're already there.
Right.
But like when it comes to say traveling to Europe or traveling to Central or South America, many countries have a lot of different testing requirements. What kind of tests you do before you actually can hop in terms of most of them are PCR tests,
What's that?
which need to be done within 24 to 48 hours.
What's a PTR? What's a PTR test?
So it's a real-time PCR test, which is the most accurate.
Okay.
Some countries will allow an NAT, which is another type of test for PCRs. So you have to look at each individual tourism board to kind of see, what the
Mm-hmm.
rules are, and those rules are subject to change.
Right.
Mask requirements on traveling through the flights are absolutely mandatory. And on top of that, many countries don't allow you during flight to wear a cloth mask. You have to actually have an N95 or a surgical mask.
Wow.
So yeah. So if you have a cloth mask, they will ask you to change it.
Hmm.
So those are, I mean, obviously those are just, some things in terms of, there are countries that keep going back and forth. If you want to come in, you have a quarantine. Netherlands is one of them. And so Australia is another one, as we could see now with the Australian Open and our Serbian
Right.
friend
Right.
trying to get in. And so, I mean, but there's many different countries. Japan is still locked down. So
Mm-hmm.
going to Japan is it's practically impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But there you just need to know if you really want to go to a country, what are their rules, and then have a plan A. What happens if I get sick or test positive for COVID before I leave? And then a
Mm-hmm.
plan C, what happens if when I get to destination and then I'm ready to leave and I have to come home, if I test positive and now I'm stuck in that country?
Right.
So everybody needs to have, so that's kind of the state of travel today.
And so is that pushing a lot of people away, or is it, what?
It's making people reconsider certain destinations. It's making people more aware of, gee, if I'm not vaccinated, where what are my limitations? If I am vaccinated, what precautions do I need to have? Um, Travel protection is really big because travel protection will now cover you if you get COVID, because it's considered a trip interruption.
Right.
Or or and so that's something that you kind of have to take a look at. The policies have changed. Um, and if you're stuck in a country, you need to make sure that you've got um, basically an extra waiver that says, "Hey, I'm stuck, and the insurance is gonna cover my extra costs." Because
Mm.
depending on how sick you are, if you're just asymptomatic, and then after 5 days of
Right.
quarantine, you haven't had any new illnesses, well, then you can come home,
Right.
according to the CDC.
So if I were to travel, if I decide, okay, I'm going to go to Qatar, for instance, and I'm just going to do this on my own, am I? Does that make sense? I mean, it seems like having a person like you would be much more just no brainer.
I
So
take
you
the
can help.
pressure off
Right.
and give you all of the information, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
Right? So I'm going to give it to all to you. I'm going to be as transparent as I possibly can.
Right.
And I'm going to say, here are all the moving pieces for you to make a decision.
Right.
If you want to do this on your own, be educated.
Right.
Don't try to wing it, because every single country has a health form
Right.
that needs to be
Right.
done. Certain countries are now creating health visas. On
Wow.
top of, if you needed a visa to go in,
Right.
there's extra layers. Everybody has a QR code that you
Mm-hmm.
need to have, and which QR code do you need at what time? Do I need to do this, and all that kind of stuff? So
Mm-hmm.
all of those moving pieces are definitely something that a travel advisor like myself would help you
Right.
navigate. But if you want to do this on your own,
That'd be crazy. Who'd want it? Could then, if we'd have to go study about all this different stuff when you already know all that stuff, right? I mean,
pretty much,
yeah.
I am. I pride myself in knowing everything that where my clients are going. I don't
Mm-hmm.
say that I know everything off the top of my head, but I have a database.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly have the ability to to check everything out. So
Right.
certainly have those conversations.
Right. So speaking of Qatar, I just picked that out of the blue. Have you ever been there?
I have not
Mm-hmm.
yet.
And is it something that, like, I know nothing about it. All I know is that it's spelled way different than how it's pronounced, and
Yep,
that some people say Qatar, and but I think
it's Qatar.
the correct way is Qatar from what I've. At
Yeah,
least
I
that's
mean,
how.
look, Americans will say Qatar,
Right.
um, but the thing is that there are different pronunciations based on the language as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
So
um,
is that a country that's safe for us to go? I mean, I'm just going to show my ignorance here, but.
yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. So most countries, unless there's some civil unrest, or there's uh, some type of political agenda,
Right.
if like for LGBTQ or something along those
Right.
lines, I will let you know in advance if you're thinking of going somewhere.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, but if you are, but the thing is that it's really going to be based on the experience that you want to have. And so I don't like to be biased in terms of a destination.
Right.
I kind of outgrew that when my fellow college peers
Right.
pretty much educated me that every country is beautiful and every
Mm-hmm.
country has something really positive to show.
Mm-hmm.
So um, so I really bring to the table, what is it that you want to experience, and so once you tell me that, I can show you how you can have that experience.
Okay. So if I wanted to go to Qatar, you haven't been there, but do you know much about it?
I do. I actually work with the tourism board,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can create amazing itineraries.
Mm-hmm. And like, what would be an example of one? I don't know
Oh,
if
I
that.
don't think we have enough time to go over that right now. Because itineraries can be usually my itineraries are about 14 days,
Right.
and they're really they focus on the local cultural immersion. So it's
Okay.
going
So
to
give me
take
the
you.
first couple of days then.
So, upon arrival, you can have a local guide take you and do some local sightseeing in
Right.
the city that you're in, and then we can take you to have local meals with folks that are true, to villages and things like that, so that you can have those experiences and have those conversations.
Now that's
Um,
it. I see the Rick Steves, that show that.
hmm.
Yeah, you're not a fan? Not a well, anyway, but he does
Rick
that thing.
Steves tries to tell you an this amazing story, and people don't realize that he's got a camera crew following him.
Right.
And
Uh,
so I try to paint it without the camera crew.
no, but I get it. But he goes he eats with them as well. I
Mhm.
mean, is that's like a normal thing to just eat with a family like
I
that?
I make it normal.
And do these families get paid for that, or they just like to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some families are hosts. So it is their business, and so it's part of keeping travel sustainable and equitable.
Right.
Um, they are it's all about dealing with with the locals and the small business owners like ourselves,
Right.
so that the tourism dollars that you're bringing in actually helps them stay afloat and stay independent.
Gotcha.
So is it something that I don't want to call it normal, but it's an experience that everyone should have at some level.
Mhm.
There are different sites that I work with that actually have the local families promote themselves,
Mhm.
and then I match make them to my client,
Interesting. Interesting. So,
because there's a whole lot of personalities, and you got to make sure it all matches.
I would imagine. So, what are your destination recommendations for this year, given all the stuff we've been talking about?
Ah, I know, right? There's so much. So one of my favorite destinations, actually, and really, this year it's kind of focused on doing a lot of safe travel, is Portugal.
Hmm.
Portugal, from not only they've got amazing islands, but also just the amount of food and wine and everything else. And because of their levels of vaccination and all of the rules that they've put in place, they really have travel in a very safe manner, with lots of social distancing and everything else going on. So really highly promoting Portugal. Um, Also promoting the Belize, because I think that everybody should be able to go and enjoy some raw nature.
Hmm.
And I really think that you can have amazing waters. If you're a diver, Belize is awesome for that. You've got also a lot of different safari experiences that you can have in the country
Hmm.
before you get into the individual caves. So,
Hmm.
so really great. I am a real big fan of going into Argentina and doing the from the wine country to all the way down to Patagonia, and experiencing everything in between.
Hmm.
I'm there's also right in our own backyard, right? So let's really focus on Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico. Those are a lot of our indigenous flavors.
Hmm.
We
Yeah, I
should.
was one of my buddies. Preston was just in Costa Rica, and he was talking about the macaws that were all over the place. There's tons of them,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
which is something I wouldn't have thought of. But then I was watching the golf tournament in Hawaii from this weekend, and oh my gosh, the scenery there was incredible. So anyway, well, I've really enjoyed this time with you, and I
Likewise.
hope if the folks the folks who watch it If you don't get inspired to travel, then there's something wrong with you. So I think that's it's really yeah, it was very interesting, and I do have to get back out there.
So this is
Go ahead.
my
Hmm.
logo. It's also
Uh-huh.
my business card,
Right.
and I am handing the world to everybody on who's watching. Where would you like me to pin you? Let me know. Text the word travel to 21,000.
There you
Thanks
go.
to Gabe, I'm pretty much set.
All right, cool. All right, Lulu. Well, it was good to talk to you, and we'll wrap it up for this week, and we'll see you in out there.
Yes, we will. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Namaste.